I met him at my favorite club one Friday. My friends and I were unwinding after a long week. He slid onto the bar stool next to me, smiling easy, ordering 2 waters with lime. He made a joke about the DJ's terrible playlist, and I laughed. We chatted for a while. Music, work, weekend plans. Eventually, I mentioned I come here almost every weekend for the vibe. He grinned and asked if I lived nearby. I almost told him my neighborhood, then caught myself. I laughed and said, "Sorry, I'm a little secretive about my address. A girl's gotta have some mystery, right?" He laughed too.
Clever dodge.
He then scribbled his number on a napkin. "Call me sometime." I told myself it was harmless fun. I hadn't been back in 2 weeks. Work was hectic. But on week 3, I was free and visited the club again when I spotted him in the corner again. My heart thumped. "Hey," he said, as if no time had passed. "I looked for you last 2 Fridays. A part of me felt flattered. Part of me felt uneasy. We spent some more time chatting and laughing, and he seemed harmless, so I smiled and played it cool. He asked, "Coffee tomorrow?" And I agreed. He arrived with a single pink rose, no vase, just the stem wrapped in tissue. "For you," he said, voice low. It felt sweet and unsettling. I tucked it into my bag and we talked about favorite movies, our jobs. It felt normal enough. Before leaving, he asked, "Dinner tomorrow?" Again, I agreed, but I felt that knot in my stomach. Over salmon and salad, I watched him. When the waiter approached, his tone snapped from polite to cold, like he owned the place. I caught his eye. He smiled at me, then back at the waiter. "Just making sure he gets me," he whispered. The waiter flinched. I caught the waiter's eye. He looked relieved when we left. After dessert, he said, "Come up to my place for a nightcap." His voice was firm, almost commanding. I shook my head. "I've got an early meeting," I lied. He pressed, "Just 1 drink." I refused again, and he finally let it go. Barely. He hesitated, then his smile tightened. I excused myself, said goodbye, and slipped out to my car. I had already shared my number by then, and while driving toward my home, I saw his car behind me and texted. I typed, "Are you following me?" He then called, and so I answered. His voice was soft, "Just making sure you get home safe." I felt a chill and asked him not to follow and disconnected the call. I turned onto a side street. He followed. I made 2 quick turns. Still there. Finally, a red light gave me a chance. He stopped at the intersection, staring straight ahead. When I reached home, the phone buzzed again with his message. He said that he was sorry and wanted to meet again to make things right. I replied that I will be busy for a couple of weeks, and so I'll let you know when we can meet again. He replied that he had been waiting to see me for weeks, and now that he has finally got to know me, he wanted to meet more. I replied honestly and said that maybe it is best if we do not meet, and I don't think we are good for each other. Then he got really personal and angry, and said things that were not appropriate and I shouldn't say them here. I blocked him immediately and went to sleep. The next day, I started getting phone calls from unknown numbers. I ignored them all and decided not to receive any. I knew it was him. In the night when I reached home after office, I found a bouquet of the same pink roses on my doorstep. The same pink rose, now a dozen. A card read, "Sorry if I scared you. Let's meet again." My heart pounded. I threw the flowers into the street and asked myself how'd he get my address. I went inside and decided to send him a text asking him politely not to send me flowers or any gift. I asked him even not to come close to my house because I do not want to meet you anymore.
That was the right thing to do.
Yeah, but he immediately called from a new number, and I decided to answer this time, just to make things right. He was already angry and yelling. He was furious. "You think you can just vanish?" His words came fast, sharp. I tried to remain calm, but I was literally shaking out of anger. He said that I wasted his time and said things that didn't make sense, and so I didn't answer. I only politely asked him not to try and meet me again, and then disconnected the call. I lived alone and I was afraid, so I thought it is best if I informed someone from the family. My uncle lived nearby. I called him about this weird guy and said that there is something wrong and I'm scared. He invited me over and even said that he could come over, but I told him to rest. I'd handle it. That night, I lay in bed when I heard soft footsteps on the hardwood outside my door. Slow, deliberate. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure it would give me away. First, the handle of the other bedroom door clicked and swung open. For a heartbeat, I thought it was my uncle, until I remembered he didn't have a key. My pulse spiked. The intruder's shoes scuffed against the carpet as they moved across the hall. My breath caught in my throat. I crawled off the bed and slipped into the closet, yanking the door shut behind me. The tiny space smelled of laundry and fear. In the pitch dark, I pressed myself flat against the wall, every muscle trembling.
You knew it was him, right?
Outside, I heard the bedroom door close. Soft, careful, as if not to disturb anything. Then the steps started again, coming closer to my door. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. My mind raced to call Uncle, or 911, but I knew the moment my phone lit up, he'd see it. A low voice whispered my name. My heart slammed. I stayed perfectly still. My phone in hand, screen dark. He moved past my door, whispering my name again. Then, silence. After an eternity, the footsteps retreated and the front door clicked shut. My body wouldn't stop shaking as I fumbled for my phone. I texted my uncle. He's inside my house now. He answered almost immediately. Stay quiet. I'm on my way. I am calling the police. It felt like forever waiting, but finally I heard sirens getting closer. My heart was pounding as I crawled out of the closet, thinking, if he was still inside and can come out anytime. I slowly made my way to the front door and opened it, and there stood my uncle and 2 police officers. Relief washed over me. They searched every room and every closet but found no one, and nothing was missing. In the kitchen they noticed a window wide open, the latch broken. It was clear someone like him could have slipped in there. I told the officers about the footsteps and the whispered name, but without proof they couldn't charge him when he denied everything he did in front of the investigating officer. They advised me to get a restraining order against him. If I was sure. I said that I was not just sure. I saw this man from my cupboard, and then I signed the papers immediately, my hand still shaking. Now, even with the order in place, I still jump at every creak in my house when alone. When you're a child, a rainstorm can feel much bigger than it really is. On that day, the rain felt endless, and I felt smaller than ever. I must have been 9 years old, or maybe 10. The sky stayed dark from afternoon, and heavy clouds blocked the sun for the entire day. I came back from school and came home. Inside, the house felt cold and damp. My parents had left early that morning, so I was all alone. They'd gone out of the city to manage an exhibition and planned to return late at night. My mom had prepared pasta for the lunch. It was my favorite dish. They called me on the old landline phone. I could hear worry in their voices. They told me that the roads were unsafe for travel due to heavy rain. They told me they were stuck in a motel and wouldn't be back until the storm passed. My mother's voice came through like a soft hug. She told me to stay calm and promised she'd come home as soon as she could. My father asked his sister to come watch me, but she said a big tree branch had fallen on her car. My mother stayed on the line for over an hour, telling me stories about when I was little. She made me laugh, and bit by bit I felt a little braver.
Yes, parents have a superpower of doing this.
Before she hung up, my mother reminded me to lock the front door, close the windows, and pull the curtains. After the call ended, the house felt very quiet. The rain still beat on the roof, but inside it was oddly still. At night, I grabbed some candy and snacks from the kitchen and sat on the couch in the living room to keep my mind busy. I pulled out my handheld water game, the one with tiny rings floating in water, and tried to land the rings on the pegs. The game made soft beeps when I succeeded. I munched on candy, my fingers sticky, and stared at the clock ticking. I don't know how long I played before I drifted off. My water game slipped from my hand and on the floor. I woke only when a huge clap of thunder shook the house, and a bright flash of lightning lit up the room. It was almost 2 in the night. For a brief moment, the lightning also lit up the door to a room right in front of me. I was sure it was closed the entire day. Startled, I sat up and remembered my mother's last words. I hurried to the curtains, pulled them aside just enough to check the door, then closed them again. I did every step, though my hands were shaking due to the sound of thunderstorm. I pushed the bolt, checked each window latch, and tugged the curtains until the living room was dark. And then I lit up one light of the living room.
I think someone was already inside when you locked the house.
I did not think about that at that time. I was only a kid. Back on the couch, I wrapped my arms around my knees. The rain was still loud, but this time something else joined it. A soft creak from upstairs. At first, I thought it was the wind or the house settling. Then I heard it again, heavy, slow steps on the stairs. My chest tightened. I wanted to run upstairs to see, but I couldn't move. At first I turned toward the other room, but then I remembered that I had seen it unlocked just now, so instead, I bolted toward the kitchen and squeezed into the cabinet under the sink. The wooden door slammed behind me, and I sat in the dark with my heart hammering. Inside that small space, it smelled like soap and old pots. My knees pressed against my chest, and my hands felt cleaning bottles and sponges. The space was too tight, and even a little movement could have opened the cabinet door. I had to keep myself completely still. There was only a thin line of light slipped in under the cabinet door. Above me I heard slow steps on the wooden floor, then the creak of stairs as someone came down. I closed my eyes and held my breath, listening as the steps moved closer to the kitchen. I peeked under the door and saw a pair of boots covered in thick, wet mud. They looked heavy and old. The person moved toward the front door. I couldn't see their face, just the dirty shoes as they walked away. Suddenly the phone rang, loud and sharp in the house. I heard the footsteps stopped, and I held so still I thought I might burst. After several rings from the phone, I heard the front door open and close. The muddy boots walked out of the house, I thought. I stayed in that cabinet, frozen. The phone must have rang for quite a few times, but I could not get the courage to walk out of the cabinet. The storm slowly began to quiet. When the rain turned from a roar to soft pats on the roof, I crept out and looked around. Morning light peeked under the curtains. I pushed the cabinet door open and stepped into the living room. The carpet was streaked with muddy footprints from the staircase toward the door before ending. No one stood there now, just those wet tracks. I ran back to the front door and locked it again, my hands shaking. I sat down on the floor, pressing my back to the cool wood, and waited. After a couple of hours, I heard a car pull up outside. My parents were home. My mother rushed in alarmed and found me curled on the floor. She dropped her bags, scooped me into her arms, and hugged me tight. I told her about the rain, the steps, and the muddy boots. My father knelt by the prints on the floor. He touched the dried mud and frowned. He checked every lock and window. Then he went upstairs to look in all the rooms and closets. He called out to see if anyone was hiding but found no one. After that night, my parents never left me alone at home again. If they had to go out, they took me with them or asked a friend to stay. I didn't tell anyone else about that night for years, but the memory stayed with me. It was my childhood trauma. Even now, I check the locks twice, maybe 3 times, and I remember how it felt to be a child, alone in a storm. My name is Claire. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Philadelphia. I was driving my old but reliable car. This happened just a few months ago. I was going on a road trip for work. I had to sign some papers in person for a new job. It paid better and had better hours. I planned to drive there, stay one night in a motel, and then come back home the next day.
Sounds normal so far.
At first, the drive was fine. But after a few hours, the weather changed. Rain turned to snow. The snow kept falling harder, and I couldn't see the road clearly anymore. I didn't feel safe driving, so I got off the highway. I needed to find a motel for the night.
Smart move.
I stopped at a small gas station to ask for help. It was dark, and the place looked half closed. A man standing outside told me about a motel nearby. "Just go down the hill," he said. "It's cheap and always open." The place was called Evergreen Inn. I drove slowly and found it a few minutes later. A big neon sign blinked vacancy. There were only a few cars in the parking lot. The building looked old and kind of sad. Yellow lights hung over the walkway. It didn't look dangerous, but it didn't look nice either.
That already sounds a little creepy.
Inside the office, a tired-looking woman sat behind the counter. She didn't smile, just pushed a register toward me and said, "Fill this." I picked up the pen and wrote my name, license plate, and phone number. She barely glanced at the page before tearing off a key from a ring. Room 112. No breakfast. Ice machine's broken. She handed me the key. I paid her $60 in cash and headed to my room.
She didn't even check your ID.
Nope. She looked too tired to care. Felt a bit careless, but I didn't question it. I figured maybe that's how motels like this run. I walked down to room 112. It was a small room. One bed, old furniture, red carpet. It was cold, but the heater worked. There was no Wi-Fi. I had one bar of service, just enough to try texting my sister that I had stopped for the night, but it wouldn't send.
That's frustrating.
After a shower, I was drying off when I heard a knock on the door. I stopped moving. Who knocks at a motel door late at night? I stayed quiet. 3 more knocks. Louder. I didn't say anything. I didn't open the door. I got down on the floor and looked under the door. I saw black boots. Someone was standing there, not moving, just waiting. After a minute, the boots walked away. I sat still for a long time. Then my phone buzzed, a voicemail from a number I didn't know. I listened. A man's voice. Calm. Slow.
"Hey there. You checked in late. Just wanted to say if you need anything. I'm in the room next to you."
114. That's it. No name. Just that. I looked out the window. There was a new SUV in the lot. It hadn't been there when I arrived. I didn't like this. I pushed a chair under the doorknob and turned off the lights.
Good thinking.
As I sat there, staring at my phone, I kept wondering, how did he get my number? Then it hit me. The guest book. The one on the counter when I checked in. My number was written in there, clearly. If he came in after me, maybe he saw it. I thought about calling the front office, but the signal was awful. My text had barely gone through, but I did not get any trouble receiving a text message. It was weird. That woman at the desk didn't seem alert or helpful. Honestly, she looked like she could fall asleep mid-sentence. And the biggest reason, I was scared to open the door. If he was outside, watching, I didn't want him to see me. I heard a sound from the bathroom. It was a soft scrape, like something sliding behind the wall. Then a thud. My heart jumped. I walked into the bathroom and listened to the wall. Whispers. 2 voices. Low and soft. The bathroom wall was next to room 114. I stepped back. I didn't want to be here anymore. I tried to call 911, but there was no signal. My phone says emergency calls only. I typed a message to my sister, weird guy next door. Whispering, I'm in motel room 112 off Highway 9. The message was finally sent.
Wow, so intense.
I sat on the bed. Waiting, I told myself maybe it was just the walls. Maybe I was overthinking. Then I heard the door handle move. Slowly. Like someone was testing the lock. I yelled, "I called the cops!" Silence. Then a soft voice through the door said,
You shouldn't lie.
My blood ran cold. I grabbed my keys and phone, put on my shoes, and opened the bathroom window. It was freezing outside, but I didn't care. I climbed out and landed in the snow. My feet were soaked, but I ran to the front office.
You were brave to do that.
I banged on the glass until the woman opened the door. I was shaking. "Someone's trying to get into my room." He said he's in room 114. She looked surprised. "There's no one in 114. She said. "Yes, there is." He left a voicemail. He knocked on my door. I begged her to check the room with me. She grabbed a master key, and we walked down the snowy sidewalk. She opened the door to room 114. It was empty. Bed still made. Room cold. Lights off. And in the bathroom, all the lights were off. But the small nightlight by the sink was glowing. The floor felt cold. I looked down. The washroom foot mat was wet, soaking like someone had just been there. Then I noticed something else. The small window above the toilet was slightly open. A cold breeze moved the curtain, just enough to make it sway. She stood still for a moment, staring at the window. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "This room hasn't been booked in 2 days." Just then we heard the SUV leaving. I rushed toward the window, but it was already too far, and I couldn't see the license plate. It slowly disappeared into the snow-covered road. We went back to the front desk to check the security camera footage. It showed black and white video. She rewound the tape. It showed me checking in my car. Then the SUV arrived. But no one ever got out of the SUV. The cameras were old, low quality. The video was too grainy. The plate was just a blur.
No way to trace it.
None. It was like he knew exactly when to leave.
That is so creepy.
I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't want to go back to my room. And no way I was staying there after that. Thankfully, my sister had gotten my message. She'd been driving already and was only 30 minutes away. I waited in the office with the woman until she pulled up. Later, I reported it to the police. They found nothing. The phone number from the voicemail disconnected. It led nowhere. But I'll never forget that voice, or the boots, or the whisper behind the wall.